Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Alright, where do I even begin? My daughter, who I've always been incredibly proud of, just graduated from university. It's a milestone I never thought I'd miss. But apparently, pride doesn't count for much when your dad doesn't fit the image of what you want to show off. A bit of background. Her mother and I divorced several years ago after she cheated on me. It wasn't a one-time slip-up or some fleeting mistake. She had a long-running affair with a guy she eventually left me for. The divorce was devastating for me. I felt like my entire world had crumbled. And honestly, I didn't handle it well. I fell into a deep depression, stopped caring about much of anything, and found comfort in food. Lots of it. Over time, I gained weight. About 15 kilograms. Not ideal, I know, but emotional eating became a coping mechanism during one of the darkest periods of my life. Meanwhile, my ex-wife's new husband, her affair partner, is essentially the human version of a gym advertisement. He's tall, lean, shredded, and has a bank account to match his six-pack. The guy's into triathlons, mountain climbing, and God knows what else. And he's loaded. Like, takes my daughter to luxury resorts and buys her designer handbags kind of loaded. So you can imagine the comparisons that started rolling in, especially from my daughter. At first, it was subtle. A little comment here, a remark there. Stepdad took me hiking last week. It was so great to get outdoors. You should try walking more, Dad. It's healthy. Harmless, right? Then it started getting less subtle. Stepdad's really disciplined. He's up at 5 a.m. every day for a run. You should get on a routine like that. Or, Stepdad always knows the best restaurants to go to. He says you should cut back on greasy food. It's not good for you. And of course, the one that really stung. Stepdad says it's important to set an example for your kids. You know, show them how to take care of yourself. She didn't outright call me fat or lazy, but the message was clear. Why can't you be more like him? Now, I don't blame my daughter for being impressed by the guy. He's wealthy, fit, and has all the time and money in the world to pursue these Instagram-worthy hobbies. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to keep my head above water and not let life's curveballs knock me completely out. But the constant comparisons, the little jabs, they started to wear me down. Fast forward to her graduation. She called me a couple of weeks before the big day to invite me. I was thrilled. She's worked hard for this degree, and I've always been supportive of her education. I told her I wouldn't miss it. Then she hit me with, "But Dad, I need to ask you something." I could tell she was hesitating, trying to find the right words. Finally, she said, "When you come to the ceremony, could you sit in the back?" I was confused. Why would I sit in the back? I thought maybe it was seating arrangement issues, or that the closer seats were for graduates' families who had flown in from far away. But no, that wasn't it. "I just don't want you to be in the photo," she said. "I mean, you'll still be there and everything, but I don't want, anyone to see." I asked her what she meant. Her response was blunt. "You've gained so much weight, Dad. I don't want people gossiping, especially when my stepdad will be there. It's just embarrassing." I sat there, stunned. I knew I wasn't in great shape. I knew I'd put on weight, and I wasn't thrilled about it. But I never thought my own daughter would find me so mortifying that she'd ask me to hide in the back at one of the most important events of her life. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the anger bubbling up. "So, let me get this straight," I said. "You want me to come to your graduation, but you want me to hide because you're embarrassed by how I look?" She started backpedaling, saying it wasn't that big of a deal, that it was just for the photos, and that she didn't want her friends seeing me up close and gossiping and comparing me with her stepdad. She mentioned how all her friends' parents were going to look so put together, and how her stepdad was going to be there and look amazing as always. And there it was, another comparison to Mr. Perfect, as if I needed a reminder that I didn't measure up. I told her I needed some time to think about it. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake what she'd said. I kept replaying that conversation in my head. I'd always been there for her, helping her with school projects, supporting her dreams, cheering her on. And now, because I didn't look good in photos, I was supposed to slink to the back like some kind of family shame? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there, humiliated, knowing my daughter cared more about appearances than the fact that I was her dad. So, on the morning of her graduation, I called her and said I wouldn't be coming. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a long explanation. I just said, if you don't want me in the photos, I won't be there at all. She started arguing, saying I was overreacting and making it about me. She accused me of ruining her big day. I said, I'm not the one embarrassed to be seen with my own father. She hung up on me. Later that evening, I got a text from her saying that she was disappointed in me and that I hurt her and ruined her day. Apparently, people asked where I was, and she had to make up some excuse. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to get into a texting battle. Now, she's still furious, and so am I. She says I let her down on one of the most important days of her life. But I think she let me down by treating me like I was some second-class parent because I don't fit her idea of what a dad should look like. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? OP is definitely not the a-hole. She invited OP to her graduation, but only if he agreed to sit in the back and stay out of the photos? That's not an invitation. It's a slap in the face. Asking her own father to hide at such an important event is cruel. OP has been supportive throughout her education and all of life's up and downs, and she should be proud to have OP there, no matter what. Her reaction is completely out of line. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Wow, not the a-hole at all. She essentially told you, you can come, but I don't want anyone to know you're my dad. That's a ridiculous and hurtful request. You've gone through a lot, and she clearly doesn't understand the impact of what she said. I don't blame you for not wanting to sit in the back like some kind of shameful secret. This isn't about you ruining her day. It's about her treating you with respect and love, regardless of your appearance. She owes you an apology. Not the a-hole. It sounds like she's projecting her own insecurities onto you. She should be proud of you for being there for her, not worried about how you'll look in photos. The fact that she would even think to ask you to sit in the back shows she cares more about appearances than the effort and love you've shown her. It's sad that she let vanity get in the way of what should have been a meaningful moment between father and daughter. Definitely not the a-hole. I can't imagine asking my own dad to sit in the back because I was embarrassed about his weight. That's not just insensitive, it's downright hurtful. You didn't ruin her day. If anything, she made it about appearances and forgot what really matters. If she's more concerned with how you look than the fact that you love her and wanted to celebrate her achievements, that's on her. She needs to take a hard look at her priorities. I've been married to Fred for 7 years and have a best friend from high school named Melanie. She went through a divorce a few years ago when she discovered her husband's affair. She's living her best life now, though she's still very jaded. About a year ago, I confided in her that I suspected Fred of fooling around on me. We had both been stressed, and he was a bit withdrawn. And then he started working late all of a sudden and was on his phone constantly. Fred and Melanie work on the same side of town, so I asked her to check on him at work one day to see if he was actually there, which he was. It turned out to be a misunderstanding. I confessed my suspicions and to having Melanie follow up soon after. He apologized for working so much and thankfully found the whole thing funny. He showed me his timesheet on his phone and the work group chat as proof. He left that job for a less stressful one a month later, and we've been happy since with no issues. However, Melanie won't let it go. She's convinced he's cheating, and we just didn't catch him. She's made some odd comments and towed the line a few times since then. For example, over Christmas, her and her daughter spent a night with us. As they were leaving, Melanie casually mentioned that she went through his phone and found nothing except him liking a girl's picture on Facebook, and told me I needed to look into it. The picture was of my sister-in-law, showing off her new hair color after Fred recommended the stylist to her. Fred was offended that time, so I told Melanie enough was enough, and to back off. She apologized and dropped it then, until this past weekend. I was out of town visiting family, and Fred stayed home to watch the dogs. She called me up on Saturday and said that she knew her gut feeling about him had been right. She had drove past our house and saw someone else's car in our driveway. She said she sat there for 20 minutes until she saw him get in the car and leave with a woman. She had followed them to a restaurant where she called me from. At first, of course, my heart dropped, but then she started describing the woman and her car, and I realized she was talking about my mother-in-law. I went off on her. I told her that she nearly ruined my weekend. She was a psycho for following him when I repeatedly told her to drop it, and that the only person causing strife in my marriage was her. I told her that if she ever breathed one word of him cheating ever again, we would no longer be friends, and I didn't want her in my house again until she apologized to my husband. She's been blowing up my phone since about how sorry she is, and that she was just looking out for me. I haven't responded yet. Fred was really shocked and hurt when I got home and told him what happened. He said that continuing our friendship was totally up to me, but he no longer wanted to associate with Melanie, and I don't blame him. I feel like this is kind of my fault, though. Am I the a-hole? You should have ended the friendship when Melanie went through your husband's phone. I'm tempted to say yes, the a-hole for that. However, your question was if you're the a-hole for going off on your friend, and for that, not the a-hole. But don't give Melanie a chance to apologize and come back into your house. Quit choosing your so-called friend over your husband. Stand up for him and put a stop to this. If you don't, you will be the a-hole. Everyone sucks here. While in your situation at the start, I may have done the same. Check to see if he was cheating. Doesn't mean it was right though, and I would have done it myself rather than dragging a friend into it. She sucks because her past is probably making it hard for her to let go, and she is using your husband as an outlet. I think she is still chasing down her own demons, so to speak. I still don't understand this. A few years ago, my college was hit by a violent storm. There were so many downed power lines hiding under the leaves that we weren't allowed to leave our dorms. Many of us had no heat or power, and several smaller dorms had to be evacuated. One for the whole semester. Maintenance, Con Ed, etc. were all working around the clock, and it still took days to fix everything. Since we had some time off from classes, my boyfriend's best friend invited us to his girlfriend's dorm for a couple's night. I had never met his girlfriend before, but I'd heard bad things. She lived in my old dorm, which was a converted apartment building with a few hundred students living inside. Each apartment had a full kitchen, complete with a gas stove. Girlfriend's apartment was at the end of the hall, and when my boyfriend and I were 10 feet away, we were hit by an awful smell. We hoped it wasn't coming from her place, but when she let us in, it got so much worse. She apologized for the smell, said it started after the storm, and that she'd opened the window to try to get some fresh air. The four of us were making small talk by the kitchen, because that's where the window was, when her roommate came back and started complaining about the smell. She said she was going to light some candles, and then it hit me. I asked if they'd check their pilot light, and they had no idea what that was. I checked it, and sure enough, it was out, and had been for long enough to stink up the 3-bedroom apartment and the hallway. I told girlfriend we had to call maintenance and that this was a serious issue. She said that there's no way I could know the pilot light was out because I didn't have any repair training, that I would be wasting maintenance's time, and that I should just relight it if I was so sure. It had been leaking for hours, so of course I wasn't going to do that. She then argued that it was fine because she didn't even use the oven, so it could wait for a couple of days while maintenance fixed the storm damage. She refused to call maintenance over what she called a little smell, and said I was acting like I was entitled to their time when they had better things to do than baby my sensibilities. She said if it was such a big deal, we could go to her boyfriend's dorm upstairs or just light some scented candles. No! It started as me judging her for a smell she couldn't control, then about her not wanting to bother anyone, then became me treating maintenance like servants, which she would never do. I explained over and over that this was far bigger than my comfort, what a gas leak was, and that emergencies like these are exactly why there's a 24/7 maintenance line. Both my boyfriend and hers backed her up and told me to let it go because I was spoiling the night. I ended up calling maintenance myself, with her yelling apologies into my ear. I literally had to open her apartment door to get the number because she refused to tell it to me. Maintenance was there in less than 5 minutes. Girlfriend apologized to him repeatedly. I kid you not, near tears and shooting me nasty looks. She told him over and over that it was my problem, that she didn't mind the smell, and that she was sorry for wasting his time over something so small, but some people just wouldn't let it go. He laughed, then realized she was serious, and stared at her like she was stupid. He told her she should have called sooner because he could smell it from the elevator, and reiterated that it was incredibly dangerous to ignore a gas leak. If it hadn't caused a fire, she and her roommates could have suffocated or gotten sick from the gas. It took him under 2 minutes to shut off the gas. All in all, it took 10 minutes of his day and saved the building. It turned out there was something wrong with the pipes in the building, and he'd spent half the night turning off people's ovens. Girlfriend spent the rest of the night complaining about how obnoxious I'd been, saying she could tell how annoyed the guy was. The rest of the night, she repeatedly complained about how entitled it was of me to call him in, to do his job, to stop a gas leak, and keep the building from exploding, which he was already in the building to do. Later, my boyfriend chewed me out for always needing to be right and alienating her as a friend. Turns out, he also didn't know what a pilot light was. Somehow, we did end up becoming friends later that year, and she brought up the gas leak all the damn time. Whether I didn't want cheese on something, I'm lactose intolerant, or vented about a coworker, she threw the gas leak in my face as an example of me getting upset because I couldn't have something my own way. At one point, she literally said, "Maybe I liked it that way." She refused to understand that she was putting her life and the lives of others at risk, and it was literally the maintenance worker's job to fix it. None of us knew how to turn off the gas, and we could have ended up causing a bigger problem by trying. Every time we hung out with a new person, she would tell them this story to show how demanding and out of touch I was with the working man. Yeah, my school had a lot of communists. Really, they were rich, and I'm talking stupid rich kids who liked to pretend they were communists because they cut Gucci tags out of their shirts. Yes, that's a real story. Or pushed printers out of windows because they didn't want to store them or carry them downstairs to donate. Yes, that is also a real story. Some of them gave her the same look as the maintenance guy, but others looked at me with literal disgust. Even when I explained how dangerous gas leaks are, even when other people backed me up, even when she Googled it, girlfriends still complained that I had inserted myself into her business, mocked how she kept her home, and wasted maintenance's time. Yep, I prevented an explosion in a building that housed about 500 people, yet I'm the bad guy for complaining about a smell. Obviously, we are not still friends. Amazing when smug, ignorant people like girlfriend don't realize what idiots they are. I'm a boater and have seen more than one boat destroyed by a gas leak. They add that scent to warn you. You may not in the end save her life, but you saved so many others. Was she gaslighting you? My mother liked to collect art during her lifetime. Most of it was not extremely valuable, $5,000 or less. However, her prized possession was a pair of man-woman glass statues that ended up being appraised at $80,000 for the pair. My mother left me the man and my sister the woman statue. My sister wanted to auction the pair and split the amount we make. However, I really loved these statues and didn't want to sell them. After much arguing, I refused to sell and my sister decided to sell the woman's statue. Because the works are meant to be a pair, the sold woman's statue was appraised at $9,000. I bought it at auction for $13,000. My sister is extremely angry as I now have both statues worth a total of $80,000 and says that I should have to pay $40,000 for the statue if I wanted both. These statues were the only things that were specifically given to us. The rest of her estate was just to be divided evenly between me and my sister. My sister says that I violated the spirit of my mom's will by managing to get my hands on the statue set. Although my parents lived well during their lives, expensive end-of-life care options for my dad and later my mom resulted in the house being mortgaged. After selling the art, except the statues, my sister and I ended up getting about $30,000 each. If you take the statues into account, she ended up getting $43,000, and I ended up getting $27,000 and a set of statues worth $80,000. So I did end up with the lion's share of the inheritance. But I say that it was divided evenly, and the purchase of the woman's statue was done completely apart from our inheritance. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your sister is butthurt that you have the valuables, and feels entitled to more than the $13K. For duck's sake, so much money she got for the glass. You're just keeping them to look at. Joke's on her. Not the a-hole. If your sister cared so much about your mother's wishes, she wouldn't have appraised it, or even sell it. She's upset because you got the better end of it. Your sister's being the greedy one. Not the a-hole. Your sister wanted to sell, you didn't. This was your mother's prized possession, yet you're the one going against your mother when she's willing to sell to a rando for a cut price. If your mother wanted them to be sold, then she wouldn't have given you one each, knowing that would drastically decrease their value. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you were both meant to keep them to remember her by. My 45 male, ex-wife, 40 bi female, asked me to consider reducing her child support payment because the price of gas and rent have skyrocketed. She's pissed that I replied asking her if she'd have done it if I was the one asking. We both know the answer is no. If it's an actual problem, as in threatens her ability to see our kids, 9 male, 11 female, I'll do what's best for our kids. It's just that she's always been spendy, and I'm doubting she's even thought about cutting back somewhere else. I make 2 times what she does, so she knows I could cut her a break. I should point out that our split wasn't easy, but these days we get along well and easily co-parent. I don't look for ways to marginalize her as a parent. We look for ways to make it work. Our kids wish their mom was around a little bit more, but they are in constant contact with their mom and are thriving. A bit of backstory, but try not to lose focus. My ex is bi, and while we were married, I was fine with her indulging that part of her life. Sometimes it was a bit crazy, but it worked for us. There was just one major rule: no other men. Of course, hard to believe, but she met a woman she couldn't be without, and she had a husband who insisted on being involved. My ex tried to give her up, but couldn't, so I set about ending our marriage and untangling our lives. Carefully, we have kids. My ex moved in with the new girlfriend and her husband. They live about a half hour past her work, about 1.5 hours away from me. Fortunately, we both agreed that our kids spending time in her new arrangement is not acceptable. So she got an apartment 5 minutes from my house that she uses only when our kids are with her. When we started, we tried to make 50-50 work, mostly for her self-esteem, but she couldn't pull it off. We've settled on whenever she can, which works out to be about 6 or 8 days a month. Her gripe is she's paying for this apartment that she barely uses, and the rent has gone up at a ridiculous rate. Gas too, and her salary has been stagnant for the last 3 years. She points out that I own my own home and the pandemic has worked out for me. Career is actually better. And because I mostly work from home, I don't spend much on gas. I make more than 2 times what she does. I've remarried and my wife works, and I don't really need my ex's money. But I do think she has a responsibility. We have a court order and parenting plan. She pays child support in accordance with our state guidelines, and she pays her share in non-child support costs like medical co-pays and summer camp on a ratio of our incomes. Wouldn't it be cheaper to rent a hotel for 2 weekends a month and do day visits other times instead of renting a whole apartment she doesn't use? There's other ways to cut down expenses besides trying to shortchange her kids. Not the a-hole for holding her accountable, but I'm not sure if you have the ability to deny the kids visit her home with this couple, since they are a part of your ex-wife's life. I wouldn't like my kids there either, but as long as they are safe people who treat the kids well and aren't inappropriate in front of them, I don't think you have legal grounds to prevent them from going there. I suggested the hotel concept. She doesn't like it because she wants her place to feel like a home. The kids keep things there and such. Also, with the hotel, it's every meal out, which adds up quick. I know I don't have any grounds to tell her how she spends her time with our kids. It's just not a great environment. Fortunately, we're on the same page in that subject. Our kids know well she's bi. It's no big deal. If she wants to lower her child support payment, she can go back to court and appeal to the judge. Unless she gets a court order to lower her payment, you should hold her to it. The court sure will, not the a-hole. It hasn't occurred to her yet that she should just admit that she'd rather spend her free time in her new life and not with her kids, so pretending to have an apartment for 6 to 8 days a month was a ridiculous strategy. She should just decide that the time she can spare for her kids should be a day thing and quit with the BS. Not the a-hole. She made an adult decision to pick her new relationship and to throw a bone to the kids when it fits in. She absolutely does have responsibilities that she needs to be accountable for.